Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this episode of This Week in Crypto Philanthropy, presented by The Giving Block and our parent company, Shift4 Payments. I will be your host, Pietro Moran. I am the Director of Crypto here at Shift4 Payments. My illustrious co-host, Nick Mikhalevsky, who is Head of Sales at The Giving Block, is experiencing a couple technical difficulties due to a rainstorm, so we wish everybody in the upstate New York area if you're affected by the storm. A lot to jump into for this week as far as a recap in the crypto markets. Things are super exciting. A lot of interesting news topics to talk about, one in particular being the Ethereum ETF. And since we last chatted from last episode, a few things that we want to talk about. As always, we're going to kick things off with a reminder. We have a $500 in Bitcoin for nonprofits looking to sign up with the Giving Block. Link will be to the show notes if you are interested and want to kickstart your crypto philanthropy journey with us. That being said, we are going to go into the first part of our show, as always, a price recap. So we have on screen the top 10 prices or top 10 crypto coins and their prices. Since we chatted last week, we've seen an exceptional rebound in crypto markets. I know the theme of last week's episode was kind of summer doldrums. Everyone's going to the beach and not too worried about the crypto markets. It seems that's changed week over week. We have Bitcoin sitting around $64,500, a nice rebound into the 60,000 range. We were trading below 60,000 last week. What caused that change? I think a few things. We're looking at kind of a new bullish environment for crypto on the back of one, the Ethereum ETF, which we'll talk about later, but also renewed enthusiasm given some of the commentary out of the political arena. This is not really a political podcast. We don't make any sort of predictions here, but it seems that the market thinks that politicians generally are much more favorable to crypto and that, positive regulation and enforcement will be on the horizon for the industry. You'll see some of the other coins on the list here. Ethereum trading around $3,400. Super exciting because there's a huge catalyst in the market. I already mentioned the ETF. Other things like Solana trading a little over $156. And then things like Dogecoin for the memers out there, a little over 12 cents. So we've seen the market have a pretty significant and strong rebound into close to all-time high prices. That's super exciting for us as we move along here to the end of the summer, and definitely marks a huge shift in sort of the vibes and energy and sentiment in the market. If you go on Twitter or look anywhere else where you're getting crypto news, I think people are a lot more optimistic this week than they were last week. So moving into a few things, and I'll speak on behalf of my co-host who can't be here today, talking about donation trends before we get into some of the exciting news updates from the crypto space. Wanted to mention that now that we're in July, we have our numbers in from the month of June. So June 2024 here at the Giving Block has been really productive. We're seeing a lot of continued enthusiasm for crypto giving. Donation volumes for the month, you'll see on the screen here if you're checking out the slides, nearly $5 million in the month of June, which is great. I mean, seasonally, I think most nonprofits expect a lot of their donation volumes to come in the third and fourth quarters of the year, especially around the holiday season and maybe some of their annual fundraising campaigns. It's great to see that crypto donors are still excited and enthusiastic in the summer months, and we don't expect that to be slowing down if we maintain the current market environment that we're in. Another great piece of reporting is just in the last 7 days since we chatted to you all, nearly $1 million in donations. So here in the month of July, we're seeing that continued momentum, and donors are just continually stepping up to the plate and finding causes that they align with and making their crypto go an extra mile to do good in the world, which is great. We've noticed that Ethereum donations, while a little bit lower in total volume versus, say, things like Bitcoin, have consistently higher numbers of transactions. And so if you parse through the data and think about it a little bit, I think what we're seeing as far as donor trends and preferences is that people are more often donating Ethereum, just smaller sizes compared to Bitcoin, which tends to trend towards major gifts. And a couple reasons might be behind that. This is a bit of speculation. Obviously, Bitcoin is older, and there are more holders of Bitcoin across the globe than there are Ethereum from the perspective of price appreciation as well. Some folks may have seen more of a run up in gains in their Bitcoin side of their portfolio, so they're more likely to donate higher amounts. But then as we also think about the cyclical nature of crypto, it tends to be Bitcoin that performs well in the early side of the bull market, which we can debate whether or not we're early or not this cycle, but we're seeing a lot of Bitcoin donations be those sort of transformational gifts, while we see a lot more consistent donation volume from Ethereum holders. The other key piece of info here we'll have in the slides as well. If you're following along via audio, I'll read some here to you. We have an excerpt here from Scaling the Crypto Economy, talking about Ethereum particularly. And while Ethereum stands as the second largest crypto by market cap, we're seeing a kind of philanthropy update to represent it kind of taking on the mantle of what is more commonly donated from a per user basis. So we at the Giving Block are agnostic as to what you donate, and we obviously want to support any format of crypto that is donatable and what our users are trying to donate. Just a couple really interesting pieces of intel there, and it's kind of on topic with some of the news that we're going to be talking about here. Speaking of Ethereum in particular, and the nature of kind of the updates this week is going to be centered around the Ethereum ETF. So when we talk about ETFs on the podcast, we really do so in the context of like, what does it mean for crypto more broadly? What does it mean for crypto philanthropists and folks that are in nonprofit space? How do they participate in this trend, even though they're not necessarily financial institutions per se, right? And so we talked about the Bitcoin ETF that launched at the beginning of this year. It saw record inflows. It was one of the best performing ETF launches of all time across all asset classes. And now we're kind of getting a fast follow halfway through the year with an Ethereum ETF. And so what we've heard and what the news articles that we'll highlight in the show notes have kind of produced is that the SEC has given Ethereum ETF issuers kind of the green light or the nod of approval to say that they can begin trading the week of July 23rd. So as of recording here on the 17th, we're within a week of potential trading of these new financial products. If, of course, and we're not making a prediction, the Ethereum ETFs trade the same way that the Bitcoin ETFs traded, we could potentially see quite a bit of inflows into the Ethereum ecosystem, a little more enthusiasm for Ethereum as an asset, potential price appreciation for Ethereum depending on how the market reacts to that. And what that means, obviously, with appreciation, with more excitement and interest, we tend to believe that there will be more eyes on crypto philanthropy from the Ethereum ecosystem as well. So that's a really exciting kind of catalyst on the horizon. We also have a pretty interesting commentary from Hester Pierce, who's one of the commissioners at the SEC, who is talking about how ETH staking and what's called in-kind creation are also under review, potentially on the table for some of the ETF issuers. So if that sounds like a foreign language, absolutely no worries. To quickly, dive into that, effectively what happens when these ETFs launch, right? It means that they are now kind of a financial product that can be invested into from a traditional, call it investment account, like a 401k, your brokerage, where you might be already investing in, say, stocks, bonds, etc. And what it does is it gives an avenue for more Main Street investors who aren't necessarily super crypto native to access the asset without having to jump through all the hoops of downloading a wallet or necessarily educating themselves on how to do everything in the crypto native way. When it comes to the ETH ETF for staking and things like that, Ethereum is a little bit different than Bitcoin. It's a proof of stake currency, which means you can stake it for a yield. And one of the open questions around that was whether these large financial institutions like the BlackRocks of the world are going to be able to stake the Ethereum that's been purchased via their ETF products, potentially to give a yield back to the holders of that product. That has not been approved, so we don't want to spill any fake headlines here. But the fact that it's being reviewed by the SEC, I think, is a productive change of tone versus what has used to be a very negative stance on the asset in general. And so, a year ago, this was not even on the table. The fact that it's under review and being considered is just a positive trend, which I think is what the market is looking at as a catalyst for future development on the regulatory front. All that to say, the real headline around the ETF is that it'll begin trading. More folks will have access and opportunity to trade these financial products where they're already doing their business of investing. And we think that's a really positive improvement. We think Ethereum donations and nonprofits and the philanthropy space generally will be part of that tide that kind of lifts all boats, right? The more attention, the more money in the space is typically an inclination for more positive things happening in the space generally. One other non-Ethereum related headline that I wanted to touch on, this is still kind of on the theme of traditional finance and crypto, is that State Street Bank, which is a large investment bank, is looking at issuing its own stablecoin. And why is that interesting or exciting? It's just another way in which they're leveraging blockchain technology to enhance their current systems. The article that's linked in the show notes below really states that they're exploring it for the purposes of both settling their trades on the blockchain, which could enhance their kind of back office, and for things like user deposits. So making a very seamless deposit experience if you want to trade with them. I think that's really cool and could be really interesting as we see more of these kind of R&D efforts from traditional finance institutions. Again, everything that they do in crypto is kind of interesting to me because we're seeing more engagement, which tends to lead to more products and services, which tends to lead to more eyes on the space, which typically is a good thing. All that to say, that's kind of the weekly roundup on the news front. We are super thrilled to be going into the second half of the month of July with, not only $1 million in the last 7 days in donations, really ton of enthusiasm on the deal front, lots of opportunities to work with nonprofits, also even gearing up for year end, right? It's never too early to start considering what your fundraising plans are for the month of December and Q4 generally. And so we're working with a lot of our nonprofit colleagues and partners to start having those early conversations, kind of priming the pump and getting everybody ready for what could potentially be, a deeper part of the bull market for crypto, and having a strategy to prepare to engage those donors as they also consider their tax obligations for the year. So with that being said, that has been episode 9 of This Week in Crypto Philanthropy. On behalf of myself, Pietro Moran, but also Nick, who couldn't join us this week, we want to say have a great week, and we'll catch you on the next one.